apparently, someone messaged me who works in the sport about Steve McNamara approaching the referee at halftime, which the commentary mentioned. And apparently this happens regularly in France. Is anyone aware of this?
How did they know?
Well, it was on TV. It was
I missed it.
Yeah. Didn't see it on TV.
You could see it. You could see it because they said in commentary something about Steve McNamara's saying it looks like he's welcoming his players off the pitch or something. I thought, well, I know exactly what he's about to do. And then, sure enough, he's walking next to Liam Moore. As a referee, it's very difficult because my standard of response would be, "We'll speak to you after the game," which can come across quite rude, but they're not really supposed to speak to you at that time. But whether there should have been a match commissioner in that area, I'm not sure.
Because the person who messaged me was implying that happens regularly in Perpignan. Has that happened to you? Well, in the past, obviously.
I wouldn't limit it to one particular ground, to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
Bernard's coming down the stairs.
Yeah, with a meat cleaver. Yeah.
Usually I'm running off, to be honest.
You're dodging balls.
Well, that was the last ever Super League game I refereed. It was at Catalan against Leeds, and I was having to avoid the missiles being thrown. So, I wouldn't limit it to Perpignan. It can happen on any number of games where a coach tries to get a message to you, and it puts you in an invidious position, because if you sort of try and dismiss them rightly, then you're being dismissive. And then if you entertain a conversation, then it's either seen on TV or seen by the opposition coach, and then inevitably you then get accused of making decisions in the second half as a result of that, which is nonsense. So you're in a no-win situation, really. So, yeah, I don't know how you try and avoid it other than you wait on the pitch, let them go into the tunnel, but then you're vulnerable because have been thrown at you. You just can't win.
It's not a great look, though, is it? No. Like, I'm not saying anything untoward happened, but it isn't a great look for the integrity of the.
So when Dave Woods or Mark Wilson or whoever on Sky says, "Well, let's find out what the coach have said at half-time," here's Jenner. Jenner also has to speak now to the referee to safety. And Liam Moore said that Steve McNamara what passed him or whatever.
That game was.
Manly win one game and all of us.
Well, that we can talk about that. Yeah.
No, we can't.
But no,
Do you want Northern English?
The Broncos Melbourne game, you'll agree, Phil, that was absolutely insane.
Sensational.
And I think the St Helens Catalans game, although it was mainly Hull FC fans were saying it was crap, but which kind of
they're experts on that.
Yeah, but I thought the intensity of that game. I know there was mistakes, but because it was so physical and intense, that was a fantastic game. And it was tight. There wasn't a lot of tries, but there was some great games this weekend.
If we're going to start there, the fact that the spine of the Dragons team were French players. That's a real landmark, I think, for the Dragons, and I understand that they've looked for overseas players of quality in key positions for virtually every year that they've had a team in Super League, but to play a side that is acknowledged to be one of the two best in the league with 5 French players. I mean, obviously that was after 10 minutes. Abdul did start. Cesar Rouge came on, but to play to that level with a spine of French players, that is moving the game forward. That's a benefit above and beyond the Dragons having a great performance. And they all, I mean, I know Ulrich Da Costa rightly got the man of the match. I haven't checked how many tackles he made, but I didn't see many that he
He's having a great season. Yeah,
fantastic.
I know we talked about Steve Bennett earlier, but he has done a fantastic job changing the whole culture of that club, the professionalism.
Yeah.
And he does, I think he was getting criticised for some reason end of last year about the amount of French players, but he has actually given a lot of opportunities to a lot of those, and they're getting better, I think.
I also think that we'll talk about Hull, and one of the people that we'll need to talk about is Jack Charles, who is clearly an extremely talented young player on attack, but he's going to get ruthlessly exposed on defence, which he was by Huddersfield. And McNamara has very carefully and judiciously introduced players like Arthur Morgan, Cesar Rouge, and we sit here and go, why don't they play them more? And actually, because what you want is them to play at a level whereby they can perform like they did on Saturday night and bring home a result. We know that Ben Garcia is good. Ben Garcia had a year at Penrith, didn't he? So, you ain't a mug if you're going to be playing in the NRL. So, I just thought that, irrespective of the game, which I'm sure we'll talk about, the fact that they had those players in the key positions was pretty amazing.
Ockenball might argue with the mug bit, but anyway, we'll segue.
But people were talking at the end of last season about Catalan being potentially in a rebuild this year.
I think I was. I mean, marquee player Sam Tompkins retires, Mitchell Pearce goes, Tyrone May, the whole spine basically goes, and Takeahu was going and then stayed. Like, I think how much money they'd spent on Tompkins, he was the key there. But they've been a remarkable.
Well, almost the pickup of Abdul is a strange one because he's on loan as well, which is like.
Except on loan, as in, please, will you take him off our hands on that?
Yeah.
We were talking about the best player incomer at clubs this year because there'd been a poll, and obviously we mentioned 3 players that perhaps weren't even on the list.
When Phil says we, he mentioned 3 players. I'm nodding. Yeah, I've heard of those.
But I do think that one of the ones who isn't on the list, and even we didn't mention, I think Tarek Sims has been a fantastic addition for the Dragons. And
George Williams' ribs.
Well, we talk about tackling technique, don't we? And you know, whether the game's being refereed a little bit differently now, we're 6 or 7 weeks into it. But he has been sensational on defence, and he was again on Saturday night.
Are they going to be then the champions of Super League Europe at the end of the season?
It's too early to say.
No. When do we look at the league table now then? Because
you look at it with pleasure, but
well, it's out of paper and everything.
I think what we said. A lot of people said that Saints and Wigan were the teams to beat, and it'll be, you know, between the two of them. I think you can now put Catalan in there as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. And I think it's a little bit like Warrington and Leeds. And there's been a lot of talk about Warrington and Sam Burgess, and they're doing very well. But being beaten by Catalans twice, and they haven't played St Helens or Wigan. If they go out and beat St Helens and Wigan, then you can sort of say, okay, you know, they can maybe do it. But there's a big difference between the top half and the bottom half, and we've seen that with the.
There's 3 divisions.
Yeah, well, I did mention that a week ago, and I think Brian Carney referenced it, but I got a lot of abuse on Twitter. So
Brian Noble might have written about that in his column in the next one.
Was he reading too? Is he?
Which I'm obliged to say is out on Friday.
We can see the.
But yeah, I think there you can watch. Well, we can watch every game now, can't we? And you can see the difference in intensity and skill and talent. I was at Cass on Friday night, and it was an entertaining game, but defence was optional for a lot of it. I mean, Danny Richardson kicked the ball out twice, and Cass still managed to win, which, you know, in a tight, high intensity game, that would prove quite costly.
So Cass Salford wasn't quite the intensity of.
It was exciting. I mean,
this is the great thing, is it?
There's different types of games, isn't there? Yeah, you know, a 6-0 game can be exciting. I think the grand final last year was, what was that?
10-2.
10-2, yeah. I mean, that was a great game, but it doesn't have to be 44-40, which can also be a great game. I think that's the
grand final, though, I thought was only. I wouldn't put it in the category of great, but because it was a grand final and because of what was at stake, that made it, in a way. Do you know, if it was a regular season game.
If you looked at the stats,
yes.
Completion, few missed tackles, very few errors.
It was physical.
It just wasn't particularly creative on attack.
But then World Cup finals in football, and you know, they tend
State of Origin games are often
teams
like
have
that,
got to that level because they're so good they cancel each other out. I mean, the Wigan Saints one that was behind closed doors in Hull with Wellesby's try. Everybody remembers how it ended. But that was a dour game for
it was
79 minutes.
It was cold. I was sitting next to you. Yeah, but that was an amazing.
Well, don't blame me.
You'd turn the weather on.
You were about 2 metres apart.
Yeah, but it was intense though.
Yes.
In its dourness, if that makes any sense, which probably doesn't. Yeah.